Hello, it's Charles Fockaert on September 26, 2018. I welcome all of you. Thank you for supporting this channel. Hey, I don't really want to do this. In fact, I don't want to do this video, but I'm sitting here at the crater of the moon, and I'm waiting for my buddy, the mechanic, show up so we can try to figure out what's wrong with the old mobile cabin, which is immobile right now. I can't leave. I can't start the vehicle. My switch is apart, and all the springs and stuff all fell down on the carpet, and I put them in a plastic bag. So this is going to go, these little parts are going to go in with my $600 bolt and my other little clip that goes in the bottom of the distributor. And I got the generator running. The battery's already charged up, but the recording works much better when I have the generator running. It's able to keep up. And this is where your support comes in, folks. I'm putting a lot more hours on that generator than I would normally because of these videos. And your support helps me to replace that generator and pay for the fuel. I change the oil as often as I can because that's very important in a generator. I've had generators when I was a contractor. I know how important it is to keep the oil. So thank you for that. You know, I want to just I'd like to leave this topic, and I'd like to go on to other more edifying, but this subject, to some people, they just can't let it go, and they're accusing those of us who are flat earthers, biblical scriptural flat earthers. The Bible, get over it, folks. The Bible is a flat earth book, and I'm not going to leave it, especially when you can't leave it. So I don't appreciate being called a false teacher. I don't appreciate being called all these names and put all these labels on us just because you don't happen to agree with us. And I'm going to play a video here by Mr. William Finck. He's one of those that just can't let it go. But he's accusing us, the flat earth, the biblical flat earthers, of causing divisions. And it's exactly the opposite. He's the one causing the divisions. He's the one that has the wrong views, and if he would just let it go, then we could just move on. But apparently he can't let it go. And I've had people come to the channel here and leave comments about how we're causing the division, and I'm saying he's causing the division. He's causing the problems. And I'm going to show you, and I've already put another video up there, but I'm going to show you in this video, using his own words and his own example, how he can't handle it when somebody doesn't agree with him 100%. So let's go have a look at that now, shall we?
But if you are more interested in flat earth or in flying saucers or in
Use the N word here,
rather than in loving your brother and pursuing what things are actually in the scripture, you shall continue to cause divisions, and you make yourself more useful to the enemies of Christ than to his people.
He insists on lumping those of us of the flat earth movement, those who believe in a biblical scripture earth, and there's tons, there's several passages, and I'm not going to go in and try to support, that's not the point here. But he lumps us in with the Nibiru crowd and the Zechariah Stitchin and the Nazis in the hollow earth, and as if the level playing biblical earth is all, you know, in that weirdo stuff, and it's not. It's not. The Israelites, the early Hebrews, they all believed in a level playing earth. So get off it, Mr. Finck. Don't call us who believe in a level playing earth, and we're not pushing it on you. you're pushing your view on the rest of us. Get off it, buddy. It gets a little old. Don't try to make us out like the false teachers, the working for the enemy, and causing division. No, buddy, you're causing the division. You're the one who keeps bringing it up, and you won't let it go. And this is a trait that you have, that you can't handle it when somebody doesn't agree with you, and they don't. They stand their ground when they don't agree with you. You can't handle that. It seems like everybody around you has to agree with you. And I'm going to give you an example, and he uses Pastor Mark Downey as an example of how he's able to work with everyone else. But I want to show you the difference, so let's continue.
If you would rather insist that Adam and Eve did not have belly buttons, then admit that you cannot know that with any certainty. You seek to rule over your brethren after the manner of the Pharisees, rather than love your brethren after the manner of Christ.
Attempting to rule over your brethren is exactly what I believe, I think, according to Romans 2:2, Mr. Finck does. And I'm not the only one who has said that Mr. Finck in Christogenea down there, over there, is a cult. He can't accept anybody, with the exception of Mark Downey. We're going to get into that here in a minute. He can't accept anybody in his group, in his cult, that doesn't agree with him 100%. Let's continue on, shall we?
Last week, Melissa and I traveled to Kentucky to attend Pastor Mark Downey's funeral. Mark and his wife Debbie had been, for a long time, good friends of ours, and we had many wonderful recollections of their fellowship. But people wonder, how was William Finck such a friend with a man who denied 2 seed line? So I will tell you how. While Mark Downey did not understand Genesis chapter 3 or Revelation chapter 12 quite the way that we understand it, he always listened to my opinions on those chapters, and he never argued with me over them.
See, the dual seed line, the Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, a proper understanding. I like how he uses the word, he didn't understand it the way that we do. And I'm a dual seed line Israelite identist. And I agree with every single one of the major subjects, the major teachings of dual seed line Christian identity. There's not an exception there. But I also believe in a level plain earth. And I also believe that gold and silver is Yahweh's money. And that issue is where Mr. Finck and I had a falling out several years ago because I didn't accept his view, and his view is that gold is useless.
And you know, if the shit hit the fan and the infrastructure fell and the grocery stores weren't getting food and I had some food and you came to me with gold, your gold's useless to me. Your gold is useless. Gold is useless. When the system falls, gold is useless.
See, as long as you listen to Mr. Finck,
he always listened to my opinions on those chapters, and he never argued with me over them.
And you don't assert yourself, which I did not do. I did not do. Mr. Finck attacked me and my thinking on the gold and silver as money. And I said, you know what, buddy, I don't need this. But see, he doesn't have to listen to you. You have to listen to him. And apparently Mark Downey was able to listen to Mr. Finck. And then it goes on here where they had discussions about other things, and which were not as important as the level playing earth. And we're going to go into that in a minute. You see that? With Mr. Finck, it's not a two-way street. It's you have to listen to me, and if you don't, take the highway, buddy.
He always listened to my opinions on those chapters, and he never argued with me over them.
And if I don't agree, if Mr. Finck doesn't agree with you, he not only won't listen to you, he attacks you. And I'm not the only one that this has happened to, and that's why I'm bringing this up. This is a trait of Mr. Finck's that, in my opinion, he needs to overcome, because it is Mr. Finck that is causing the divisions in what should be a solid block of like-minded individuals that are not going to agree on everything, but at least they can listen to what other people have to say, which he has a hard time doing. The scripture says a wise man will listen. A wise man will hear and increase learning. Mr. Finck just might consider listening to some of us who don't agree with him on the biblical level playing earth issue. And that's my point. And stop attacking us.
And while he was not what we call 2C line, he nevertheless understood that the Jews were inherently evil by reason of their racial corruption. And he knew that none of the non-white races were of God. So Mark would never have thought that a nigger could be found in the kingdom of heaven. Most importantly, he understood that Yahshua Christ was Yahweh God in the flesh, even if he shied away from the Hebrew names for God and Christ.
So you see that there are several issues there that Mark Downing and William Finck didn't agree on, but I agree on all of those things. I agree on all of those things, and yet William Finck and I, we don't communicate with each other anymore, and I don't support William Finck, and that's a shame, and that's the point I want to make here. It's William Finck who's alienated some of the potential leaders of all of us working together, and there's no way that I'm going to work with this man while he continues to attack me and others. And it's a shame that Mr. Finck has spent all those years in the Iron Bar Hotel learning Greek and has a ministry that could be so much better if he would just work a little bit on his character and his willingness to accept other brothers and their thinking, and that we don't all have to agree, and we don't all have to kowtow, and we don't all have to allow Mr. Finck to lord his knowledge over the rest of us.
We agreed on the major issues, so we did not have to fight with one another over the minor ones. And even with this, we had many intense debates in the Christogenea Forum over the drinking of wine in the gospel, over the nature of spirits and demons. But we never let the minor differences interrupt our fellowship and our friendship.
So I would ask if you were able to discuss the wine in the Bible and the difference of the spirits with a man who didn't believe or didn't use the Old Testament, the old Hebrew words for God, the Father, Yahweh, and Yeshua, didn't believe in a second, dual seed line identity and other issues, didn't agree with you. Why is it you can't have a discussion over the level playing earth? There's other intelligent, critical thinkers who agree on all the major issues with you, as you do, and yet they don't agree with you on the level playing earth. They also don't agree with you on the issue of, is gold and silver Yahweh's money? So why can't there be, or maybe there is, but I don't think so. Maybe there is, but a lot of you push away, you repel other men, other brethren, and the women. I'm in touch with women who have been offended, greatly offended, by one of Mr. Finck's junkyard dog attacks. He uses the verbal turnkey baton on some of his some of those who listen to him and what he has to say, and then they don't want anything to do with him anymore. And again, I would contend it's Mr. Finck who's causing the divisions, and it's Mr. Finck who's causing the movement to be fractured and not as strong as it could be, because Mr. Finck has got to be the top dog, and that's not how Scripture works. And he's going to have to get over it, or his ministry is not going to be, in my opinion, what it could be. And you're wondering here, why am I doing what I'm doing? Well, here's what Mr. Finck wants me to do. What I'm doing, and here's the evidence to support that. My understanding. Here it is.
And I beg to be corrected if I'm wrong. And I beg to be corrected if I'm wrong. And I beg to be corrected if I'm wrong.
All of our brethren should learn from that example. Mark and I both could lay aside our differences and not let our egos be inflated for the sake of our fellowship. But when we cannot convince our brethren of things which are not explicitly spelled out in Scripture, regardless of how clearly we ourselves may see them in the cross-references and in the metaphors and allegories, we are better off setting the difference on the back burner for the sake of brotherly love, so that we can be free to engage in the important battles that we face, as Paul had explained in Ephesians chapter 6.
Well, I agree with you there, Bill. And I think maybe someone else's ego is involved here, huh, buddy? Maybe it's you who can't put these issues on the back burner. Maybe it's you who can't listen to your other brethren, the other brethren that are your equals. I don't think you can handle someone being your equal. I think, and I'm going out on a limb here, and I don't like to do this, but I think it needs to be said. Knowledge puffeth up. Esoteric knowledge has an effect, and those are William Finck's words, not mine.
Once we are taken in by one of these heresies, when we are convinced that we have knowledge, and especially if the knowledge is seemingly special or esoteric knowledge,
this special esoteric knowledge, like the knowledge of Greek and the classics and all the rest of it, doesn't that tend to elevate us above other brethren that don't have the same knowledge, that didn't spend 12 years with 3 squares and a bed, giving him time to learn a language and learned what he knows now at taxpayers' expense? And now, let's keep in mind, folks, what put Mr. Finck there in that Iron Bar Hotel for a moment. And I could say a lot more, and I'm not going to. This kind of a conversation should be going on in private, but William Finck doesn't doesn't have or doesn't is not conducive to this. He's very public in his attack of others, and he's very public in his opinion and his treatment of other people. So, you know, what's good for the goose is perhaps good for the gander. And he's got some other verses. He's very good at quoting verses that he thinks supports himself, but I don't, you know, Scripture applies to me first. Scripture applies to me first. I try as best as I can to take the beam out of my own eye before I worry about the speck in another person's eye. We have a lot of our own faults, and we have our own issues, and we have our own sins, and we have our own defects, character defects, etc. And I would, you know, I just think that the attacks on other people because they don't agree with Mr. Finck's teaching 100%, that they ought to back off, put it on the back burner, take your own advice, listen to other people instead of insisting that they listen to you. And I'm not trying to convince you. My guess is you're going to go on and do whatever it is that you've been doing. But I pray that it's otherwise. I want to thank those of you who support this channel, and I want to thank you well, I just want to thank you for supporting this channel, and I want to thank you for listening and watching and sharing. May the grace of God our Father Yahweh, the God of the Israelites, may His grace be upon us all, for it should be obvious that all of us, most certainly need it. See you.